You are listening to 89.7 FM Savage Radio, City of License, Mettler, California. Wake up, America. This is the Earl Parsons Project. I am Earl Parsons, Oildale's golden son, bringing my talk show to the Bakersfield world and to the audience. I don't know what Bakersfield world means. It sounds like a nightmare. But I have two very special guests. Our first guest we're going to hear from is a Hollywood talent agent for exotic animals. There's some confusion about what his name actually is, so we're going to get into that when he comes on. After that, Savage Radio's own The Phantom Stranger is going to be in the building talking about basketball with me. We're going to memorialize Stuart Scott. We're going to talk about why the Eastern Conference is garbage and what can be done to fix it. A lot of topics, a lot of issues. Let's go ahead and move on with the show. I have a lot I want to get to. Our first song is going to be by Of Montreal. Coming up next on Savage Radio, you're listening to the Earl Parsons Project. You're listening to 89.7 FM, KSVG, Savage Radio. I am Earl Parsons. This is the Earl Parsons Project, my personal playground that I force upon the citizens of Bakersfield every Saturday night, 9 p.m. to 11. We're also going to be a podcast. The first episode that aired last week, the first recorded episode of the Earl Parsons Project, is up on YouTube right now. I just got some cash in my pocket to put it on SoundCloud. I hope to be your entertainment as you drive out into the world, head out to parties, have a good time on this beautiful Saturday night. It is very stuffy in this downtown Bakersfield studio right now. I'm glad the game isn't still on, so all of you can have my full, undivided attention. Good NFL playoff action. Patriots beat the Ravens today, 35-31. Seahawks rolled over the Panthers, 31-17 at home. Of course, by the time you listen to this, none of those scores will matter. You'll already know that. But this just happened. By the way, the Earl Parsons Project is going to talk about sports a little bit. I have Phantom Stranger coming in. We have a lot of NBA chatter. But I get people who don't like sports. None of my friends like sports. I'm kind of a nerd. And I like sports the same way that I like Game of Thrones or 90s sketch comedy shows. I just get obsessed over the statistics and the people and the personalities and all that. But it's not that much different than being a traditional nerd. There's just a lot of machismo and bogus male chauvinism in the mix. No different than Comic-Con. A lot of, like, if Gamergate has taught us anything, it is that nerds can be sexist too. That's the important lesson to take away from that. There's good sports fans. There's bad sports fans. I love my teams. I'm a Dodgers fan. I'm a Lakers fan. Oh boy, the Lakers are trash. We'll talk about that later. But there's people who take it way too seriously. They get way too into their team. They're not fun to be around. I'm talking to you, Greg. Lord Looney, here at the station, big Steelers fan. If his Steelers aren't doing well, he kind of goes nuts, and it's not fun. Speaking of sports, are so powerful. I watched the owner of this station cry when America got a tie in the World Cup. They got a tie, and I saw Boss Man Jake cry like a baby as our guest comes into the studio. Yeah, but people get way too serious about their team. They bring that stress onto their wives and their children, and it's not healthy. Let's move past that. I got to tell you what music we've heard. We just heard Paul McCartney from the 1980 album McCartney 2. Yeah, that new Kanye song that's coming out. Coming Up was the name of that song. I love Paul McCartney. I play him on the show a lot. If you've heard The Stash with JD Dyslexic, you've probably been subjected to a little Paul McCartney solo stuff. What I love more is angering baby boomers who get really mad when you don't know stuff from their childhood. And a great example of this happened on the internet this week. So Paul McCartney's doing a track with Kanye West. You know who Kanye is. And one of my favorite comedians, someone I look up to a lot, a guy named Deezus Nice. He hosts a podcast called Deezus vs. Marrow on complex.com. It's a video podcast where they talk about nerd stuff. They're two guys from the Bronx who talk about not nerd stuff, but like rap, fights on World Star are a frequent topic on their show. And they're great. Deezus Nice, he put out a tweet that took the world by storm. He said, Kanye has a great ear for talent. This Paul McCartney guy going to be huge. And this local news networks aired this as if it was being real, as like one of those, aren't millennials dumb stories? And old white people got mad on the internet and were yelling at him. And it was really funny. And that's great. I can't wait till my generation becomes 40 and we start saying stupid stuff like that all the time. Like, oh, you've never heard of Radiohead? What? Never heard Tom York, the guy with the weird eye? That's the worst. None of this stuff matters. None of it matters. Sports, music, books, movies. I guess some books matter. Like Sun Tzu's Art of War, I guess, had an impact on the world. Yeah, the Bible. We know my guest is a very religious man, devout faith. Yeah, but none of it matters. All that stuff could be wiped away and humanity would still be intact. So I don't believe in sacred cows. Let's get rid of sacred cows in 2015. Anyone's up for game, including me. You can hate this show if you want to. I don't care. What else did we hear musically wise? I need to use better words. That's another resolution. Is talk better in 2015, especially now that I'm recording a show where people are forced to listen to me. And by the way, this is a podcast. If you're listening live, too bad. But if you're listening on the podcast right now, you can skip forward through everything I'm saying. You never have to hear this part. I do this for my own self-indulgence, this introduction. So feel free, skip forward. I'm not sure how far you got to skip in your iTunes or your YouTube video or whatever. But do it. I do it with podcasts all the time. It's okay. Roxy Music, that's what we heard. From the 1974 album Country Life, we heard All I Want Is You. Tom Sharpling is a guy I look up to a lot, host of The Best Show, thebestshow.net. It's a live radio show like this that's also a podcast. He was talking about how Ringo Starr just got admitted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as just a solo performer, which makes absolutely no sense, because as a solo performer, Ringo Starr is garbage. His music is garbage. It's dumb novelty songs. Oh, no, 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 I don't smoke it no more. That does not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Roxy Music, not in the Hall of Fame. But they had room to let in the Ringo Starr All-Star Band, the All-Star Tribute Band, which he tours with people every year, and the lineups get less and less All-Star. I think they had like a bass player from Night Ranger the last time he did the Ringo Starr's All-Star Band. We kicked this set off with Of Montreal. The album was called Hissing Fauna, Are You the Destroyer? We heard Suffer for Fashion. I just watched a great documentary about Kevin Barnes. It was called The Past as a Grotesque Animal. I'd recommend you check it out. It was great stuff. So I've been busy this week getting this podcast together. Earlier this week, I had edited the whole thing. It took me about 2 hours, and then I forgot to save and lost it all. And I was so mad at myself for like an hour before I realized I had written all the times down that I needed to edit. And it just made my life so much easier. I've been learning all these new programs, going through the tedium of copying the same photo into iMovie 70 times just so I can put audio of the podcast up on YouTube and trick YouTube into thinking it was a video. I need to learn these programs. Yeah, I think I just need to get Final Cut Pro through some kind of less than legal means. My life is a shambles other than this podcast / radio show. And I don't make a lot of money, so I went to the welfare station, the welfare office. I guess it's not a station. They don't they don't drop people off or pick them up. But I went to the welfare office, which is a nightmare hellscape. It's horrifying. The ratio of facial tattoos to not facial tattoos in that building is pretty high. But you're going to find a higher percentage of facial tattoos in the welfare office than you are anywhere else. Which facial tattoos are the universal symbol that you've given up on society, and that you're just kind of done playing the game. I'm not a discriminatory person. Get what you want on your body. Do whatever you want to your body. There's something about disfiguring your face that makes you incapable of being a part of what we're doing in this world. You see a guy with a face tattoo, you know he's not afraid to fight you. There was a sign up at the welfare office for a Medicare website called C4yourself.com. It was the letter C, the number 4, yourself.com, which I thought was funny because it sounds like a website that teaches you how to use C4 plastic explosives. No one looked at that website and thought, are people going to think this is for plastic explosives? Are we going to get NRA enthusiasts trying to learn how to stuff their bodies with C4? That's not funny. I'm a terrible person. Other than that, I've been sort of talking with a lady friend. We're kind of I've only known her for a couple weeks, really. We're sort of in the courtship phase, getting to know each other, and yeah, I'm a weirdo. We're still sort of like texting way too much, and I'm the most cynical person in the world. I know that my life is a failure, and that the world is going to ruin this relationship, and there's going to be nothing but pain afterward, and there's going to be an open rift in my heart when it's all said and done. And even if that doesn't happen, it's going to be a lifetime of pain and growing and struggles that I'm laying the foundation for in these early stages. But I guess it's still worth it for those like brief fleeting moments of happiness you get when like you have those like gross butterflies in your stomach. And this is completely not relatable to anyone. And that's fine. This is something I'm going through right now as a rational person who hates affection and trying to learn how to be a human being and feel feelings. I'm a robot. I want to be a robot, but that doesn't happen. It doesn't get to happen like that. Let's go ahead and move along with the program. I've been talking a lot. That's what this beginning part is all about. It's about talking a lot. Let's move right forward with this show. Built to Spill coming up next. Savage Radio. When we come back, I'll be joined by an exotic trainer for animal. He's not a trainer. He's an agent for animals. We'll find out all about what his deal is here in a little bit. He'll come to us through Skype. It's Savage Radio, 89.7 FM.
Come through me. You arrive and I'm on fire. Subdue me to explode. Days go so slow.
Welcome back to Savage Radio 89.7 FM, KSVG. I am JD Dyslexic. This is the Earl Parsons Project. It is my personal playground for musical joy. We just heard, what did we hear? We heard Modest Mouse, Heart Cook's Brain off of 1997, The Lonesome Crowded West. That just was re-released. It was impossible to find on CD and vinyl for a long time, and they just re-released it this year. Before that, we had Mac DeMarco, Dreamin' from the album 2, and then we kicked it off with Built to Spill, Reasons from the album There's Nothing Wrong with Love. Now, I am joined by a very special guest. Can my guest hear me?
Yes, I can, Earl.
Oh, wow. You're coming in pretty heavy, sir.
Do you need me to do a sound check?
No, there's no sound checks needed, but there was a bit of a mix-up. I talked with your publicist to set this interview up. He told me your name was Earl Rosenbaumstein. And now you're saying that your name is different?
Well, I prefer to go by Doc, actually.
Okay, Doc. We'll just call you Doc.
That would be fine, Earl. Thank you.
You are a talent agent for exotic animals.
That is correct, Earl.
How do you get started in a field like that? That's a very specific type of job.
Well, you see, I always had an affinity for exotic animals. I pursued a medical degree in veterinary science in order to become a veterinarian. And quickly, I realized there was more money in cosmetic surgery for animals, especially down here in Los Angeles, where I'm from. So I opened up a office in Beverly Hills, and it became quite successful. I had a lot of clientele coming in that would seek cosmetic surgery to get better film roles. And it wasn't very long before a friend of mine, who happened to be a talent agent, he needed an oceloti for a certain role.
What is an oceloti?
That's an Italian ocelot.
Okay.
And he did not know where to find an ocelotti, and I happened to have a client, or a patient, excuse me. I'm used to changing careers still. I had a patient at the time that happened to be one. So I put them in touch, and before long I realized how simple it was to find casting calls and get these patients of mine roles. And before long I had transitioned out of the veterinary field of veterinary cosmetic surgery is what we called it. Out of the veterinary cosmetic surgery field and into representing animal talent.
Tell me a little bit about veterinary cosmetic surgery. I didn't realize that animals needed. What are you doing? Like boob jobs on lemurs?
Don't be ridiculous, Earl. That's well, we have some particularly talented animals in this city, but not all of them have faces for film. Some have faces for radio sound effects. But for example, we've had some hooved animals whose horns maybe weren't pronounced enough. We've had a lot of dental work, and well, we've had just every type of surgery you can imagine for a human. We've had for an animal. We could do neck. We could get rid of extra skin on animals' necks. That was primarily what we'd specialize in, actually.
Now, I know you specialized in dentistry. You used to make grills for exotic animals.
Well, we had another doctor in my office who worked for. I handled I'm a surgeon, actually, myself. We had the dentist was in office, and our clientele would come in there too. That's when I realized that we wanted to really help exotic animals find jobs rather than domestic animals or even agricultural animals. You see, we had some dogs and cats would come in, but many dogs and cats owners normally couldn't really. Our service is a little high end, let's put it that way. And so the animals that we would see come into our office happened to be certain animals that were more sought out in Hollywood. And one example that I think you just brought up was a bear that we had. We had Mr. Pickles Gonzalez, if my memory serves me correctly. He had a very successful role in Ben-Hur, Part 3. And so we had to, I guess he wanted a grill. He was feeling that was in style at the time, and so we gave him a diamond and platinum grill.
So you gave a bear grill. Am I right?
Yes, we give many bear grills.
Okay.
But basically, this is the moment that got me into actually representing exotic animals.
So I just want to move on. So you transition into representing them for film and television, getting them contracts, and discovering new animals. Your first major discovery was a young orangutan named Dunstan, star of the film Dunstan Checks In, famous movie. Tell me a little bit about what meeting him, and why he was so special.
Well, Dunstan and I, Sam actually is his real name. We met down in Mexico City one time when I was there for business, let's just say. And he seemed very amicable at first. We had our actually great experience down in Mexico. We went and saw a number of shows together, and he held himself together quite nicely in public. He didn't have any of the normal ape-related problems that you'd imagine that apes normally have.
What are some normal ape-related problems? You just said that like people would know what that is.
Oh, the grooming. The grooming is very, very troublesome when it happens at the wrong time. Let's just say that.
Okay.
So I got Dunstan. I brought him back to America to live with me, and he stayed with me for a while. Everything was fine, and I got him the role in Dunstan Checks In. It was actually his first major role. No commercial work, no prior film work. He was cast for Dunstan Checks In, and in the middle of filming, I have to be careful what I say on here. I'm still very upset by it. But in the middle of filming, Dunstan left. Dunstan left me and the Bill Norris Agency.
You work for the William Morris Talent Agency?
No, I'm sorry. That's the Bill Morris Agency. We have offices in Newark and in Montebello.
Okay.
Anyway, he got a little too big for his britches, let's just put it that way, and he decided to go with another manager who I don't even want to say his name. So I'm sorry. You asked me about my experience with Dunstan. It's not very pleasant. I'd rather move on.
So what animals do you currently represent for the Bill Morris Talent Agency?
Oh, we currently have just too many to name in the Bill Norris Agency, but me and myself, I personally represent Polly Pronghorn, Peter Panda, Captain Capybara, Charlie Cheetah, Harold Hippo, and those are the ones who actually followed my instructions with the alliteration in their stage names.
So some of the animals don't like alliterative stage names?
Some of them don't respond well. Some of them have had names given to them when they were young that they can't remember a new name. You know how certain animals get. Our one with the best memory, though, has to be Ollie Ollie excuse me, he gets upset. It's Ollie Ollie Elephant! He has a sense of humor. We have Javon McRonald, that's our cougar, and we have Ted Bundy the deer. We're trying to get them to star in a buddy comedy together, but let's just say it's a little difficult to ensure a deer when a cougar is its co-star.
I want to know, what was the Javon? What was that name?
Javon DeRonald.
Javon DeRonald. I want to know a lot about this cougar. Tell me more about Javon DeRonald.
Well, Javon DeRonald actually, he was an inner city cougar. He grew up actually very close to an urban community, and he originally was picked up by animal control for terrorizing pets in the neighborhood. We got the phone call, and we went and rescued him from the animal shelter. He still has a problem with pets. We're trying to keep him away from his new co-star. They need to be in close proximity, but you just got to teach him that he's not allowed to eat other animals.
Tell me a little bit about your work on Noah's Ark 2, Still Flooded, which is in production currently.
Well, it's in development currently. It's not quite in production yet. You see, the Noah movie, Part 1, starring Russell Crowe, was the first Noah movie that came around since I've been in the city, and I'll tell you, I'll just be completely honest with you. It was actually I had about a dozen of my clients working on that film. It was really helpful for me and helpful for our company. And after that, it got pretty slow. And so we've been lobbying the studios very hard to pick up our Noah Part 2. One of them is currently with Sony. We're currently in development. And we'll see how it goes. I hope I have about another dozen animals now that would really love to get a role in that.
So what are some of your other upcoming projects other than Noah's Ark 2, obviously?
Well, right now we have Egg. He's a wombat, and he is currently trying to star in a remake of Bridge Over the River Kwai. And we're not really sure about let's just say Egg is having some problems. He has some insecurity issues, namely that he was named by a toddler. But I don't know. We have,
Well, that's fine. I want to thank you for stopping by. I kind of want to move forward. Your name is Doc. You are a talent agent for exotic animals. Where can people find out more about you?
Well, you can look up the Bill Morris Agency if you'd like. That would be all of our contacts. You can see our clientele and who we represent. And that would probably be the best place to look. If you'd like to find me on Twitter, you can find me at Doc Rosenbaumstein.
Doc Rosenbaumstein. Okay.
So, thank you very much, Earl.
You have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you. You too, Earl.
All righty then. Hey, there's my background music. It knew. The computer knew that time. Last time I didn't know. Now, let's move right ahead. I have to get to ads. That went a little long. Here it is. Savage Radio is brought to you in part by these sponsors. We are back on the Earl Parsons Project. Can we hear you? Hello. Oh, my goodness.
Hello, Bakersfield.
Hey, there we go. Bakersfield can hear you now.
All right.
All right.
I've done this before. You'd think I know what I'm doing, but,
Yeah, I'm still learning all this stuff, too. I'm technologically ridiculous. Now, the podcast listeners aren't going to hear how I couldn't get you on, so I
need that in real life. Be able to just cut things out.
Oh, I wish. I wish, man. Like Click, like that movie Click.
Kind of like that, yeah.
So I wanted to talk about the NBA with you. You are a basketball nut. We had a big story in the NBA. We're going to start off. Stuart Scott passed away, a great broadcaster. What did Stuart Scott mean to you?
Well, I was old enough to where, I was watching ESPN, and I, was aware that he was kind of a new anchor when he came on in '93. And he wasn't he wasn't a stuffy white guy. Even though it was ESPN and it was sports, it wasn't that much different from just a regular newscast a lot of times. There was a few guys that kind of had their shtick, but he came on and he was something different, and kind of brought that I guess we weren't calling it swag in '93, but kind of bringing that thing on that he stood out from everybody else, and he made it exciting. And being a Bulls fan, watching championships be won all the time, he was doing a lot of interviews with Michael Jordan and guys of that nature. And so he was somebody that I've basically been watching since I was a kid in 1993. So he brought excitement to sports in general, whether it's the NBA or otherwise. He was on a lot for football and stuff like that as well.
I think one of the great things Stuart Scott did was make slang and sort of urban lingo more accessible to middle America. I think that's one of his great contributions.
And he, it wasn't a... trying to say this without sounding bad, but it wasn't ignorant. It was
he knew the league, and he knew what he was talking about.
Exactly.
And he brought the flavor to it. And now I feel every Sports Center announcer is just a pale imitator of Stuart Scott.
And even guys that were already on the air at the same time as him. You can definitely say that about people that have come up since he was on, but even guys that were already on the network, they kind of started changing their style up. And the thing is, for those out there that actually know me, my wife and I were big in the the Relay for Life stuff, and we've both lost family members to cancer. The whole reason that my Ramones cover group, the Cretans, is around is a tribute to fighters and survivors and those that we've unfortunately lost. And for him to, even if he didn't initially intend to kind of go through this in the public eye the way he ended up doing, he's the definition of a fighter. And, I saw Hannah Storm say that he didn't lose his fight to cancer. We lost Stuart Scott. And I think that was very true, because he did not lose by any means. He just I
don't know if anyone ever loses. I think people always
no, yeah,
know.
definitely. Yeah, because I mean, I'm not somebody that's hung up on celebrity status or anything like that. Just because he's on TV doesn't make his fight any more valiant than anybody else. But he was a good representation for a lot of people out there.
So moving on, what do you think are some of the big stories in the NBA? We're almost to the halfway point. The All-Star game is about a month away. What do you think of some of the big headlines in this season?
Well, just last night I was introduced to just how good the Washington Wizards actually are. They are hot. That is a great team. It's one of those, they've been at the top of the East for most of the first half of the season, but I didn't put a whole lot of weight on it, but I'm not gonna lie, they ran all over the Bulls last night. We had no answers for John Wall or Nene or anybody, and
people have been saying this is Washington's year. This is Washington's year. I really feel like this is the year where John Wall and that team are get to at least the Eastern Conference Final.
Oh yeah, they're definitely I'd say an Eastern Conference Finals contender. And depending on how the rest of the season goes for some of these Eastern teams, it's not, beyond me to think that they could even sneak into the finals. Mm-hmm. Are they a championship team yet? Probably not, but they still have some pieces that, kind of need to fall into place. But yeah, they're definitely going to give any team they play a big problem.
Now, I think a major storyline for me is the continued awfulness of the Eastern Conference in general. I mean, the Bulls are pretty great. There's Washington. Then it's just a whole lot of nobodies, really, in that league right now. I kind of like I like watching Philadelphia. I don't know if they're going to go deep. I think they're a good young team to watch. Atlanta's a great team.
I was going to say Philadelphia's only got 6 wins this season.
Yeah.
So, Atlanta is right up there with the surprise for me with Washington. Same deal. I kind of thought that they rattled off some early wins and then the bottom would fall out. But they're not that far off the best record in the league with the Golden State Warriors.
But I think we can agree that the caliber of play in the East is not up to where it is in the West, where you have San Antonio and Oklahoma City and the Clippers and Golden State.
Yeah, even just the teams just from last season that have fallen off, whether you're talking Miami Heat, the Indiana Pacers, teams that were title contenders just last year are now, fighting for that final spot in the playoffs.
Now, there's been a lot of chatter because of that. We might have, how many teams are under 500? I'm just curious in the East right now, in the top 8. Just kind of curious here.
3.
There are 3 teams. So, yeah, we might have, half of the top teams under 500. There's been a lot of chatter among the owners about what to do. I think Mark Cuban had a pretty good plan, which was move all the Texas teams to the East and then get rid of some of the dumb discrepancies. Like, for some reason, the New Orleans Pelicans play in the Western Conference. There's no reason for that.
Yeah, there's definitely some weird things, within the division of the conferences and things. But I see it both ways because in terms of sports and how long it takes for the tide to shift sometimes, we're not looking at that long a drought for the Eastern Conference. The last few years, it's been a huge difference, but I don't think we're quite to the point where we need to kind of blow up the model and, start over. I don't, a lot of it comes down to, there's a lot more emphasis put on major market teams now. There's certain owners in certain places that do have more money to throw around,
and free agents prefer going to bigger markets because they can make more on endorsements than they ever could on their contracts. Even
absolutely, and that's part of why I'm happy to see guys like Kevin Durant. He's been getting some big opportunities with contracts and with endorsements and things. And Oklahoma City is not a big market by any means, but
there's a barking dog outside. I think we can ignore it. I hope. We may need to close the window.
Yeah,
though.
I think
Go ahead and keep talking.
Somebody's getting ripped at the throat now. But I think that's the biggest difference is there's so much that's driving contracts now as far as money goes. Take Carmelo Anthony, for example. There is no reason that he should have picked the Knicks over the Bulls from a championship contender standpoint.
He wanted to stay in New York to make more money, and his wife likes New York.
And, with that said, it's easy for us to sit here and say, oh, well, you've got this many $1 million.
I know
What's the difference?
if I'm leaving $25 million off the table,
closer
I got
to
think
50
about
million.
It. Yeah.
And so, what are you supposed to do? But at the same time, he's essentially sitting there wasting his career right now, and he's going to be another big scoring NBA player that does not have a championship ring. Mm-hmm. And that's just the way he's going to end his career, I believe.
So in the off season, big news, LeBron James wrote an essay and put it in it was on ESPN.com. Where did where was
I think
that?
It was ESPN, yeah.
Okay, yeah, he wrote like a 1,000-word essay on why he was going back to Cleveland. They got Kevin Love. They had Kyrie Irving already. Cleveland had the first overall pick 3 years in a row. That team does not look good, and it's not like a situation like LeBron's first year with the Heat. We don't remember this, but it was pretty rough. Yeah. They made it to the finals, but it was a rough year. I don't see anything good in this team. LeBron might be able to opt out later out of his contract and move within a year. Kevin Love's gone. Kevin Love's pretty much gone next season. Mm-hmm. So what can you attribute to the problems with that team?
Part of it's the coach. He's a rookie coach from overseas, with not even any assistant coach experience. He was, put right on to the head coach spot. That's part of it. He doesn't know how to handle the NBA limelight, that goes along with having, arguably the best player in the league and on your team, and then other people like Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love that also demand, a lot of attention. I think that's a big part of it. But I don't see this as being too much different, really, than that first year in Miami. They've got a lot further to go than that Miami team did, but I think there's a lot of people that are, ready to hit that panic button just like they were in Miami. And, you got to look at it as this is a completely new team.
Yeah, the interesting thing with Cleveland, Eric Spoelstra was just kind of a fluke that it happened to work out, and also they had Pat Riley waiting in case Eric Spoelstra didn't work out. It happened that he was a good coach, but I think they tried to get lightning in a bottle by hiring this new guy, and it just hasn't worked.
And the thing is, too, even before him, they had a bad coach, and so the players that are left over from that system are now learning a completely new system, and I don't see it being a huge deal. I think it's hilarious that they traded for J.R. Smith because I don't think the answer to any problem is J.R. Smith. But
if you're looking for an answer of where to find bottle service, maybe J.R. Smith might be your guy.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't see it being the end of the world yet.
Yeah. Speaking of teams where offenses don't mesh well with systems, let's talk about the Knicks a little bit. So they hired oh my God, he was the coach of the Lakers forever. What's his
Phil Jackson.
Peter Jackson.
Phil Jackson.
Peter Jackson. Phil Jackson. He's the GM, refuses to be the coach. They got Derek Fisher, who's sort of Phil Jackson's lackey.
Yeah.
Grew up in the triangle, knows it really well. And they didn't recruit any personnel to work within the triangle offense, which is very complicated. So they just had that three-way deal where they got rid of J.R. Smith, who is not a triangle offense player at all. I don't think he's ever thought about passing to anyone. But yeah, do you think that team has any potential to get better? And they don't have a draft pick until 2019.
No, it's going to be a long time for two reasons. One, nobody wants to willingly go into that situation. And two, unfortunately, I kind of have a hard time saying this because I've always been a huge defender of Phil Jackson, even when he was coaching the Lakers. But this, to me, kind of shows that there was a little bit to the people that always said, oh, he was in the right place at the right time with, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal. I'm not saying that he's not a good coach. Obviously you've got to be able to make that stuff work, but he went into a situation where, to me, it's pretty obvious that the system he's trying to force on them is not working, and he's not budging. He's not he doesn't have anything else to bring to the table. And the thing is, you can say what you want about Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. Everybody, oh, they're ball hogs, this, that, and the other. Well, they've got 6,000 assists each, and 90% of that is because of that triangle offense.
Yeah, and they get the double team. They know where to go with it.
The triangle offense is, when it's run correctly, there's backdoor cuts, there's pick and roll cuts, there's kick out threes, there's all kinds of options available. But not if you have a ball stopper like J.R. Smith, like Carmelo Anthony. If that ball stops once it gets to them and they're not utilizing those other options, then it's pointless. Mm-hmm. So, and I just hate the Knicks. So.
I've always, I understand you probably have some residual hatred from the 90s or whatever.
No, it's totally what it is.
Okay. But I've always been fascinated with the Knicks. I feel like they represent the bad part of New York. They represent the Yankees. The Yankees are for rich people. The whatever, but the Knicks represent the disenfranchised part of New York, the people who have to deal with being stopped and frisked every day. Those are the people who are the fans of the Knicks.
Yeah, and even going back to, because I do have love for, like 70s Knicks, because those are, sort of original, NBA.
The Knicks don't have any highlights in color. All their highlights are like in black and white.
Essentially, once they got past, the 90s Knicks and even the early 2000s Knicks, basically once Isaiah Thomas came in and just wrecked shop, they've been a joke in one way or another. Even the years that they were still making the playoffs, they were still a joke.
They asked too much for Carmelo when he went to Denver in the first place. They lost all those draft picks. They lost so much, and they're still paying for it.
You would think
on the old contract.
You would think that they learned from that Isaiah Thomas situation because he did the same thing. He basically almost bankrupted that team because they paid too much, and then they let players go, and they were still paying players. They gave up all of their draft picks. That all started in that Isaiah Thomas era, and now they're just kind of repeating it.
Yeah, there's the owner of the Knicks is a guy named James Dolan, the worst human being on the planet. He has a blues band called JD and the Straight Shot, where he invites like famous musicians to come play guitar with him. Like he'll have Bruce Springsteen on stage with him, and he's just burning through the team's money. He has no love for that team. Their team isn't going to be successful until he's gone, probably.
No, yeah. I mean, even though obviously the Bulls had success, they were sitting in the same boat with. Oh no! Now I'm going blank on his name. Jerry Krause.
Okay.
It was the same thing. He was taking that team to hell in a handbasket. Essentially, let Michael Jordan and Phil Jackson go in 1998 because he, didn't want to deal with the contracts and, give me a break.
So before we go to break, I'll talk about one thing here that might be of interest to us. Derrick Rose, he's just come back from injury. I remember seeing him in the offseason in the FIBA series. He looked great. People are complaining that he's been a little tentative. He's been gentle on his injuries a little bit. Do you think there's any credence to the fact that people say Derrick Rose is being soft and preventing further injury.
When you messaged me earlier today and told me that we were going to talk about this, I was fully prepared to come in and just go to bat for Derrick Rose because I thought he was good to go. You know, he was getting his legs back, getting his conditioning back. He's looked great the last few games, and then he didn't play against Milwaukee tonight because of soreness in his knee. I don't think there's any. He may be a little tentative, yes. Whether it's a heart thing or an effort thing, I don't believe that.
Not at all.
But is he being tentative? Probably, and you know, it's kind of hard to say is that right or wrong because I mean,
well, A, when playoffs come, he's not going to be tentative.
No,
and then B, when I think sports fans fetishize people who play through pain and ruin their lives in order to be successful. I mean, I was just watching football. That's all football is about. In Week 17, when Aaron Rodgers went off the field and was injured and he came back on, I could have Troy Aikman could have had a heart attack. He was so excited and ecstatic about it. And we fetishize people who are ruining their own personal lives in the name of entertainment. And part of what angered people is what Derrick Rose said. He wanted to have a career outside of sports. He wanted to be a businessman. And Knicks and Bulls fans, I should say, aren't happy about that necessarily. And
yeah, I don't necessarily have a problem with him feeling that way. It might not have been the smartest thing to say it, you know, because I mean that's just the way things go nowadays. It's between the internet and everything else. As soon as something's past your lips, it's on every form of social network there is, and twisted and turned, and makes you look stupid. But I don't have a problem with it right now. It's a little frustrating sometimes, just having to look up every time to see if he's playing or not. But they've got a lot going for him. Taj Gibson, Jimmy Butler, Pau Gasol had a career-high 46 points tonight. They got a lot going for them. It's just they do need that consistency as we get closer to the halfway point and moving past that point.
Oh, man, as a Lakers fan, I cannot be more disappointed that Pau Gasol is playing so great on the Bulls right now. It's revitalized his career.
Absolutely. Well, he's given the opportunity now to play the way he should have been able to play in L.A., but he wasn't ever given that opportunity.
Exactly. So. He just fit in with that offense perfectly. He understands their approach to defense. He understands what they're trying to do. And let's go ahead and move forward. When we come back, we're going to go through the top 8 in the West and the East, talk about each team, see how they're doing. We had a lot of chatter, but I think there will be some productive that comes out of that. Let's hear the Fiery Furnaces right now on 89.7 FM, KSVG.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4.
You are listening to 89.7 FM KSVG Savage Radio. I am Earl Parsons. This is the Earl Parsons Project. We just heard Run the Jewels, an album that me and Phantom Stranger share in common with loving. The rap game Jules and Vincent. Killer Mike, LP. Great combination. We heard Lie Cheat Steal off of the Run the Jewels 2 mixtape. Before that, the Fiery Furnaces. From Blueberry Boat, we heard Straight Street. I'm back with the Phantom Stranger. How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Good to hear it. Now, aside from being a basketball fanatic, you are a local music promoter here in town.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you tell us about what you got coming up?
Well, the next show in line is actually, with as many shows as I do and as long as I've been doing this, is my first show at Jerry's Pizza. Sunday.
That's surprising to me.
Yeah, I don't always have the opportunity for that all ages crowd, so this was a good chance to bring them something. Sunday, January 25th at Jerry's Pizza, we've got Revolution Mother, and if you are not familiar with Revolution Mother, that is Mike V, the pro skateboarder, his band that he was in before he hit the road fronting Black Flag. They've got a couple albums out, just good, fast, balls out, badass rock and roll.
And did you hook the show up whenever you met him at the Black Flag show?
It's through the same booking agent, and she brought it to me because, he had a good experience with the Black Flag show that we did last year. So, that kind of went hand in hand.
Jesus Christ, Muscle Car, Crooked Folk, Elephant Skin will be the other bands playing there.
Indeed.
And you've been how many years have you been putting on shows now?
I guess officially I'm going on 5 or 6. It's been sort of the last 3 as a full-on, the Phantom Stranger Incorporated thing. But it's been a while now. I started out just doing flyers for my friend's band, and next thing I knew, I was booking shows.
That's awesome, man. You do a lot of great things for independent media here in the community. What do you think is the end game for this? Where do you want Phantom Stranger to be in 5 years?
Well, my goal from the very beginning and my goal still now is just to put on good shows. I always want it to be a good experience, and I want you to get entertainment, from what you're there for, and I want people to realize that you don't necessarily have to know the band that you're going to see. You can just show up, and there's going to be quality music on stage. I'm getting hit up a lot ever since that Black Flag show because everybody wants to know what's next. And to be honest, that's not really my goal. Like, my goal is just I want to do shows for the bands that are cramming everything into a little truck and are hitting the road, just grinding to make it happen. Those are the bands that I'm kind of out to represent. And I think my goal in the long run is to kind of function eventually more as a record label, which is starting to happen now. I've already got some records under my belt and going to have some distribution opportunities and things coming up this year. And that, I think, is my ultimate goal, is to, still be doing the promoting and the booking, but also function as a record label.
You've released a couple mixtapes. Where can people find those?
Right now, they're primarily available just at the shows, with the merch and things. There's Phantom Stranger Presents Volume 1 and 2. I think between the two of them, there's 24 bands. Some of them Bakersfield locals, some of them that are just highlights from touring shows throughout the years. Pretty soon, they will be available on PhantomStrangerInc.com. That's sort of in the makings right now. The store and stuff is being built. So
any iTunes maybe?
Eventually, I don't know if I'll go the iTunes route. I think actually I'm going to be looking at sticking with things like Bandcamp and stuff like that.
Would you ever consider like a pay what you want type of thing?
Yeah,
or?
And that's part of why I'm going the Bandcamp route, because even with the compilations of the shows, they're $3 each, or both of them for $5, and it's essentially just to cover the materials and to keep it in stock. Because I print the labels, I package them up, I do everything myself. So that's all. That's all that's for, is just to cover the materials and make it so that I always have them to sell.
Okay, so let's get back to some NBA chatter. We were going to go over the top 8 in the West and Eastern conferences. We talked a lot of Eastern Conference in the break, so I thought we'd get into the West. Leading up, number 1 at 29-5 currently, we have the Golden State Warriors, new head coach Steve Kerr. What do you think? What do you think the change in coaching has done for that team? Because they lost Klay Thompson. Other than that, they're pretty much the same team that they were last year.
I think Steve Kerr brings a little more toughness to the table. Mark Jackson was a teacher, and and Steve Kerr is he's turning out to be a teacher, but also applying those things to get results. So I think he's made them more of a defensive presence, which is the biggest difference. Because they're still run and gun, racking up points on the scoreboard, but they're also at times holding teams to 80 points. So I think that's the biggest difference. And as far as long term for them, the only thing that I see being a problem is they're still young.
They don't have a lot of big men, do they? They have Bogut. I think?
They're pretty small. So come second, third round in the playoffs, if they get their backs against the wall, I can see them potentially collapsing.
I can imagine them going up against the Grizzlies in the first round and getting run through by like Zach Randolph or somebody.
So
number 2, we have the Portland Trailblazers, LaMarcus Aldridge, Damian Lillard. They've been a good team for a while. Do you think this is the year that they make it to a Western Conference final or to the finals?
Potentially, yeah. I see them sort of having some of the same issues as Golden State in a way. I mean, they're bigger than Golden State.
Aldridge is probably one of the best big men in the league.
But they do occasionally, if you've watched them throughout the season, they have the tendency to just not show up at times. So I mean that I think is the biggest problem there. They got to get some more time under their belt with this lineup. But they are a team that can also, stack up a bunch of points on a team like a San Antonio or a Memphis or somebody like that, and get ahead of somebody in a playoff series.
I'm looking at this top 8. One very notable omission: Oklahoma City under 500. Kevin Durant injured still. What's the status?
He's back and forth. He's back in the lineup now. He tweaked his ankle after coming back from that broken foot and missed a couple games.
With how good the Western Conference is, do you think they're obviously going to be back in the top 8, but do you think they have the potential to make it deep this year?
They do have the potential to make it deep. The problem is I'm not completely saying they're going to make that 8th spot yet, because things are so tight 1 through 11 in the West that if they have a couple of losing streaks here and there, and not even necessarily streaks, I mean even 2 games here, 2 games there, they could be fighting for that 8th spot. So I mean there's the potential, if it comes down to late in the season, that I mean they could end up missing that spot. I'm not saying it will happen, but if they get into that spot and everybody's healthy in the second half of the season, then they could easily upset those first 2 rounds and find themselves in the Western Conference Finals, and sitting pretty good.
So let's just go through the rest of the top 8. We have 3 Houston, 4 Memphis. We just mentioned Memphis earlier. Dallas, that I'm not sure if there's kind of a ceiling to how good they can be. The Clippers, I'm kind of interested in. I don't know if they have everything it takes. I love their coach. I love Doc Rivers. I love the personnel they have. I think Chris Paul is fighting injuries. Is that right?
Yeah, he's a little banged up. The thing with the Clippers is their defense is at times non-existent. There's a reason that they're that low in the standings. I mean, they just at times just flat don't show up, and I see them being, depending on how those spots fall, I see them being a second-round team. I don't see them being able to go 7 games with one of those top 4 teams.
A great indicator of how great the Western Conference is. San Diego is sitting at 7. Do you think this is the year, with how old they're getting, do you think this is the year they maybe miss the playoffs?
San Antonio?
San Antonio is 7.
Okay. I don't see them missing the playoffs because part of why they're as low as they are is Pop is playing that, resting the starters game.
Yeah, he doesn't play Duncan or any of the older guys in this part of the season.
They don't play back-to-back games. They they play lighter minutes. If we had done this show last year at the same time, I wouldn't have said that the Spurs would have won the championship.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see them being the championship team this year because I just don't feel like they're quite as stacked as they were last year. They're not quite as strong on the bench, but they won't have any problem making the playoffs. There's a good possibility that once some of these other teams run into some droughts, all of a sudden you'll say, "Oh my God, San Antonio's number 3." When did that happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so that is the top 8 in the Western Conference. Eastern Conference, we talked a lot about it. I'll just run through it. Atlanta, you got number 1, big surprise, 28-8. Toronto, Drake's team, 25-11 at number 2. Washington, great young team, number 3. Chicago, the Phantom Strangers team, number 4. Cleveland 5. They're not great, but they are a 500 team right now. Milwaukee 6, Brooklyn 7. And Miami Heat 8. I don't see Miami Heat being a contender with LeBron gone now.
No, you can say essentially 1 through 5. Who's 6th again?
Milwaukee.
Yeah, 1 through 5 are the only teams that really have any, chance of doing much of anything. The thing about the top 4 is just a couple days ago, the Bulls were only like 2 games out of first place. And then they lost a game. I forget against who. They lost a game. And then they lost last night against Washington and all of a sudden dropped from number 2 to number 4. That's how tight the top of the East is right now. I think they're all 2nd through 4th are separated by like half a game right now.
Yeah.
So that'll be a dogfight through the end of the season. Problem is, no matter what you feel about Cleveland right now, you don't want to play them in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to end up in a 4-5, meeting with Cleveland. You'd be much better off playing, Milwaukee or, somebody like that in the first round. So they need to keep up in that, 2nd, 3rd, potentially first spot, depending on, how they run, but.
All right, Phantom Stranger, our NBA correspondent, I want to thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
I have to go to a break because we've been talking for way too long. Savage Radio is brought to you in part by these sponsors. This has been the Earl Parsons Project. I want to thank Phantom Stranger for being our guest. I want to thank Doc Rosenbaumstein, the exotic animal Hollywood agent, for talking with me. You can check out Phantom Stranger's next show at Jerry's Pizza this Sunday. Phantom Stranger and Baco Skate Co. present Revolution Mother, Mike Vallely's band before he started with Black Flag. Jesus Christ Muscle Car will be opening along with Crooked Folk and Elephant Skin. Jerry's Pizza, Sunday, January 25th. We'd love to see you guys out there. You can follow me on Twitter at Earl_Parsons. You can follow the Earl Parsons Project on Facebook, facebook.com/Earl Parsons Project. We're on YouTube. Search for us on YouTube. I'm trying to get on Black Planet. I'm trying to get on Mi Gente. Remember Mi Gente? No, you don't remember Mi Gente. It was MySpace for the Latino community. Earl Parsons Project at gmail.com. If you have any questions for me, if you want to come on the show, we'll probably can make it happen. Nobody famous is on the show. I just want to talk with people for a little bit. That's all. I want to try to make a human connection with another person. That's all I want. Our background music and our theme song is by Daniel White. You can find him on Twitter at DanoComedy, SoundCloud.com/Daniel White UCLA. He is a regular guest on the Kill Tony podcast, recorded live at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles. It is an open mic. It is an open mic comedy night that is recorded and broadcast on the internet. It's a lot of fun. He usually does stand-up for 1 minute, and then people critique his stand-up. So go see that. Our logo is illustrated by Lesley Matthews, heartlesley.tumblr.com. That is the word heart, HeartLesley.tumblr.com. This has been Savage Radio. You can find out more about that on KSVG.org. I'm getting out of here. It's getting late. I'm tired of talking. I have one last song for you guys. It is by... Who's it by? I don't know who it's by. It's by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. I heard this on an episode of The X-Files, and I forgot how much I love this song. Nick Cave, Savage Radio, good night. Remember, Beavis is actually Butthead's son.